further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 4 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the purchase and payment of computer software and upgrade for engine diagnostic equipment from KC Tools, not to exceed $3,000, to be taken for Fund 10A08.
So moved. Second. Discussion. Chuck, just to verify, I mean, this is for what the mechanics are using.
Yeah, this Cummins engines basically stopped. We couldn't get the software for it, so this is an upgrade for all our Cummins engines. We have 3 of those now, so they can read codes and be able to diagnose internally, to not to send out. So right now we have no way of doing that. The old equipment we have won't read those codes. They don't want to read, Ford, Chevy, international chassis, that kind of stuff. So that'll help. Because 95% of the time we do all the work in-house, so this will just save us, more money down the road, be able to diagnose our own problems and, for engine codes and stuff.
No further discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 5, these are all regarding the training building. And I did put a packet there in front of you with the design concepts and also all the contract stuff. So with these, this has been a long process for the training building. We've made many trips, looked at a lot of different buildings. They actually went to bid. Our lowest bidder was just about $350,000. Which is quite significantly cheaper than the next bid. We had 6 people take packets, 2 bid, and we made a trip to Youngstown, or suburban Youngstown, to this vendor the other day. They do work with Air Force, military agencies. They build a lot of aircraft control stuff and modular training systems. So we feel they're going to be very well qualified to build a building. And I did put the other drawings that they put together for us, and very similar to the pictures when we visited a couple places, other models. So that being said, there's actually 3 resolutions that go with this step process for that.
I'm going to move on. Fire resolution number 5, resolution to list bids. And as the motion reads, be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, for the 2017 Mobile Fire Training Building F-17 bids are attached from Carrillo Fire Training Facilities and American Fire Training Systems, Inc., and are attached and made part of these minutes.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And then, number 6, we have to list the fact that the contract met the terms, and we picked the vendor there. So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to read that since we added it, or if you read that.
You don't mind reading it?
So this resolution to go along with the fire training building says, whereas Plain Township Board of Trustees have awarded a bid for the 2017 Plain Township Mobile Training Building F-17 to Carrillo Fire, whereas the contract has been prepared according to the terms and conditions of bid specifications for the 2017 Mobile Training Building. Therefore, it is resolved that Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize and execute the contract with Carrillo Fire Training Systems. Bid packet F-17, the language was in contact incorporated, but references and fully written here and there. So for that amount to exceed more than $349,750.
I will so move. Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Trustee Hunt, do you mind, Chief, do you mind real quickly just explaining, because we have some residents here, what the benefits, what might already been inside this, how this illustrates dining room, bedrooms, upstairs? Do you mind just a little bit to show what you guys would benefit from this building and what what you would learn in case of a real,
Yeah, we designed the buildings for like a residential home. It'll have a kitchen area, 2 burn areas in it, so we do Class A burns. And basement fires, we can do basement fires in it. It has windows for rescue technique. We'll be able to rappel off this, do window pickoffs, use our ladder truck for high-rise evolutions for the hotels. We've added a parapet wall for businesses. So we've added a lot of things to make it simulate residential, commercial applications. And these funds are capital funds that we've set aside specifically for this training building that we've been saving for a few years, I guess you'd say, and to replace it. We train 3 times a week, the guys do, whether it's fire, EMS, and we've used that building forever down there, and I think our guys show that the training on the street, so it's I think a good investment, and I think we got it set up pretty well. Obviously, you know, the sky's the limit when you're trying to dream these up, but you got to make it realistic too at the same time. I think we've done that with windows, doors, forcible entry tools, etc.
and do you remember on the rooms that you're allowed to bring to tell us, what was the temperature?
We can go to 1,000 degrees in there, 800 to 1,000 degrees. Be safe.
Can I just interject? We're a little bit out of order. I want to suggest that you table the motion that we just brought, because it's actually the contract motion. We need to award, it's list award contract instead of list contract award. So we need to table this one and do the other one. It's got it, just a matter of.
Well, I'll move to table this resolution and then try to deal.
Yeah, that's my fault. We added this late on the agenda, and I got them out of order here in my file. That's why I need to.
Okay, hold on a minute, guys, we need a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Okay. Now we'll go back to Chuck.
So number 6 would actually be a motion by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to award the 2017 Plain Township Fire Training Building Project to Carrilla Fire Training Facilities as the lowest responsible bidder at a bid price of $349,750.
I will so
from
move.
21A.
I will so move.
I'll second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And if again, I'm chatting tonight, but there was you spent a lot of time with this, and we got to go a couple of visits, we all taken visits, but this wasn't just something that came up. You really took the time, you studied these, and I think that we came up with one of the best solutions as far as this type of building, and you already explained what this building can do, so.
Just so many benefits.
So many benefits.
And, you know, some people may question the need of it. First of all, you know, when you're looking at being able to literally train at those frequencies in your own district, you don't have to go very far to be able to do it. And then when you look at the cost factor, if that building suits us another 20 years, doing the math, that's less than 20 grand per year of high quality training capabilities with training scenarios and, you know, all those simulators. Can't beat it.
I was gonna say what we have to pay, schedule out other areas, and not having necessarily say priority.
Yeah, that's our biggest expense, traveling to train, and with it being here.
Plus overtime. I mean, you know, if you have to do things off-site, and you have to bring other people in, I mean, there are a lot of other factors, so there's a lot more benefits than there are.
I do have a motion to bring it back.
Then make a motion to bring back to the table fire number 7, which is the resolution to enter contract.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Just by way of order, that was the motion to bring it back. So now you'll have to.
Now we have to do the
actual
motion.
7, sorry, Tom.
That's all right.
And then make a motion to move fire resolution number 7, tentative contract.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Thank you. So I apologize for the mistake there. I had my papers out of order.
Honest mistake. Thanks, Chief. Road Department, Mr. Iacino.
I only have one item tonight, that's the monthly report for August. Do you have any questions?
Have a lot of roadways looking good. What do we, again, 17.6 miles this year was what we did, which is about 10% of our roadway.
Yeah. We've probably got 14 done, they're still working here.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Joe? Okay. Thank you, Joe. Take us to the zoning department and turn over to Mr. Farrar.
Thank you, sir. First time on the agenda is the monthly report.
Have we seen much in the form of communication on the backside of Wicker Creek, given the grading and so forth that's going on back there?
Not a lot of communication going back and forth. They're still working on it.
Okay. I think there's your question, see Tom after. Number 7.
And item number 2 is a resolution to declare nuisance abatements for item A through D.
That was so moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution to declare items A through C nuisance abatements.
I'll move on zoning number 3.
Second.
Discussion.
That's A
A through C.
Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes, that was D, I'm sorry, A through C.
There's on C.
See?
On the back side. On the back side.
First one was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, second one was A through C.
All right, thank you. So I just want to make sure we got on it.
Next.
And item number 4, this is a resolution to add some new computer software to our capabilities in the zoning department. This will give us the capability to allow our citizens to be able to fill out permits, send in their drawings, submit their payments, all from home. They won't have to leave work or leave home to try and get here before we close. They can do it on weekends or in the middle of the night if they want. We can do it all by, over the computer now, as well as just mailing back their permits. This resolution is to authorize the attached service agreement with iWorks Systems in an amount not to exceed $3,700 to be taken from Fund 13A04.
Okay, I will so move.
Second.
As far as discussion, from a clarification point, I work as something, you've been with us, what, now? Is it
Almost 2 years,
2
yes.
years that we tasked you with and getting implemented right out of the gates as a means of processing and streamlining our processes over, because we were dealing with a lot of homegrown, man-made, disjointed, disconnected systems that would obviously drive inefficiencies and/or create potential for a miss or something, whereas with iWorks, everything's in a single consolidated system. So this element will help feed into any parcel files and so forth. So from a
Yes.
historical aspect, we'll have a better view there. Then, you know, the piece that's important outside of the zoning, I think is, you know, with what Mr. Wolf's office has done, to even tighten further cash controls, because anytime we can reduce actual hard cash, it's touching
Yes.
hands, you know, all while providing convenience there. So, any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Item number 5 is a resolution to renew the attached service agreement with iWork Systems in an amount not to exceed $5,180 to be taken from Fund 13A04.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 6 is a resolution to initiate a township zoning amendment to add the following definitions under Article 4 of the zoning resolution, and the passage of this resolution by the board shall be certified by the Plain Township Zoning Commission in accordance to ORC 519-12A1.
I will so move.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Eric, is there any need left?
I think we're just cleaning some things up.
All right. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 7 is a resolution to initiate a township zoning amendment to delete the following wording from section 1001 transient vendor of the zoning resolution, and the passage of this resolution by the board shall be certified by the Plain Township Zoning Commission in accordance with ORC 519-12A1.
Yeah. I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion, because obviously there's some language here that, to help the public understand. Zoning, and the board gets a number of questions about, hey, how can certain people be out in my allotments soliciting, whether it's, say, energy aggregation services, choosing a new gas, electric supplier, satellite dish to, is there anything else?
Security systems.
Yeah, security systems.
Surveys.
And because the contract, the terms and conditions don't require payment right then and there, they've been able to skirt this, and it has been creating issues within some of their allotments more than others, just because, 8 o'clock at night, you're getting like, who in the heck is out here? So this is intended to help better rein that in to where these folks would have to come in here, go through the formal process, determine whether they can be approved or denied, and they just can't blanket go out into our subdivision allotments. The one thing to note is, obviously, if you're a resident and you see it, call the zoning, call Township Hall, so we can address it with people.
It's quicker if they call the sheriff's department,
Okay.
and then the deputy can check it out right there and advise them.
Sergeant Koenig?
I do have a quick question on this. When will they be able to get these applications and permits to be carrying them? Just so we can you give us a heads up, Eric, or so we can let the guys know?
So what's the question, when will
When
they
will
have?
they be able to get it, if they're a legitimate entity, organization, or whatever, when will they be able to get that certified stamped /sealed letter?
So the sheriff shows up, these guys have it on hand.
Yeah, and they're not left on the hook of,
Well, this will go through the process, and as soon as that process is complete, Tom, what's it take on this one?
We have to go to zoning commission first. If they pass it the second week of next month, then it'll come back to the
Back to
board.
us.
If it passes, we'll have to set a date for the hearing. It'll pass that hearing and goes another 30 days
So
before.
we're
it's-
November, December.
I'd say 90 days
So
or
it's gonna
so.
be a while.
And if we could just get a copy from Tom, that way I can pass it along to our guys,
So they know it's coming.
because up until this point it was, if they're in the allotment,
Yeah,
we either give them a warning or we cite them.
yeah,
You
I'd
know.
say 90 days.
Okay, so we got time, I'll give it to Tom.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that's all for zoning, sir.
I just want to say, Tom, thanks. You spent some time with me on all of these, and I appreciate it. You made it more understandable to me, but a lot of work here, a lot of hard work, and
Thank you.
a lot of good stuff here. Thank you.
Mr. Steinberg?
Keep it short and sweet tonight, gentlemen. My one and only item is the monthly report.
projects look good over at the dog park.
Yeah, they've done a nice job of buttoning up those projects in a timely manner and finishing up a couple others this week and next, so we should get in the fall in preparation for our tournament season.
I do want to say, I mean, this is, granted, this is last month's stuff. The work literally between parks, road, fire, with the flagpoles that are up over at Veterans behind our Keystone Monument truly look phenomenal. So on the collective team effort, and you and I know we've got something later here in communications where we'll be acknowledging one of the other vested parties in this, but I mean, that's truly morphing into something spectacular. If you get the chance and you're headed west on Schneider, literally as you start to see the fire station, you'll see the American flag that sits up behind our Keystone Memorial before you can even see the memorial. It's flanked with the Ohio flag and the MIA POW flag, so it's truly, it's awesome. Yes. Thanks for everybody with that parks related.
We're actually getting a little better at that too, because each one of these projects, we kind of collectively get together and decide what needs to go first, second, third, fourth, and it just seems like it all falls in place after that. So, and obviously you guys are where the rubber meets the road, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Further discussion on parks, I'll include the law director.
Yes, thank you. Under the law director tonight, just one, there's been an expedited type 2 annexation, 0.637 acres, 4111 Louisville Street, Northeast Mahoning Industrial Park annexation. So that is on for any comment or direction the board would like to provide.
This resolution on this is just bringing it up for discussion, right?
I'm bringing it up for discussion, although I will say if it's your intent to object, I think our timeline, this was filed the 30th, what's today, when do we, today's the 12th? We meet again on what day?
Let's bring it for discussion.
Yeah, bring it for discussion. You'd have to object tonight if you're going to object.
I drove over by there. This is on the immediate west side of the, let's just have that, I don't want to call it factory here, but I don't think that's the proper thing. Essentially, the entire parcel is immediately surrounded by the city of Canton. It's an old Stark mold and plastic shop that appears to be vacant, non-productive yards. I think as I indicated, my concern longer term isn't this. We're getting a lot closer to Metalco over there, which is in the township. That over the last couple of years, sitting on the Tax Incentive Review Council, the number of jobs that they've been generating over there, hitting those thresholds. We want to make sure we protect that and keep that as a valued township business. We're not using that, but specific to this parcel, I don't see. anything that moves us to.
Well, when you look at the footprint, first of all, it looks like an alligator took a big bite out of that spot right there. So, you know, just to describe it, it sits right in the middle. What this drawing doesn't really indicate, though, is that there's a building that sits on that property that the corporation line runs through. So, think about this for a minute. Think about calling a fire truck there, an ambulance there, working with the building department, working with the zoning department. It's a nightmare. The last thing that I would ever want would be for Canton to do something like that to us, or vice versa, for us to say, this particular annexation, based on that building, how it's divided, just makes sense from a logistics, a safety issue, and everything else. You know, I was actually still here when that building was divided. It's a nightmare. So for me, it just makes sense. I would not be in favor of opposing this thing too. That's me.
If you're not going to object to it, you don't have to pass anything. The 25 days will simply come and go, and it'll note that your lack of an objection will be treated as consent under the law.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Williams. It's going to take us to communications, and the first thing we have here is thank you to AP for assistance with the Veterans Memorial. Essentially, with the raising of the flags, we had, what, 2 30-footers and a 40-footer of their AP donated to the township the use of a bucket truck to help lift and raise these flags. And that was coordinated through our staff, so through specifically our fire chief, Chuck Schalmer. So we truly owe a debt of gratitude to the folks over at AEP, because this could have been something where, hey, we had to incur an expense, but we've held true to this entire project still being done without taxpayer dollars. It's been done through donations. So, you know, to have this, you've got more and more vested parties that are coming along, and it allows us to stay within the budget of the donated resources while still keeping things on track. So, Chuck, if you'd be sure to let contact over to AP know the board's
Very
Yeah, we took a bunch of photos today and some other stuff for them. They're, I'm not sure the exact title of their rep that was there today, but pretty high up in their organization. So, and she was all pumped up about it, and you know, one of the guys was a vet that actually was running the bucket truck. So it was a good thing. We couldn't have done it without by manually. I mean, there's no way that the small ones maybe, but you know, and those guys do that for a living, and you know, obviously regular polls, so it worked out really well. So
Because the longer one was in 2 pieces, wasn't it?
yeah, we assembled it all
Yeah.
before they got there and everything. Yeah, it was huge help. So it's awesome. And,
Yeah.
you could tell they kind of wanted to do it too, and you know, excited about doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second item under communications is something I had received from Scott Garcia. It has to do with Friday night, the 9/11 memorial tribute that was done. It was sent to Rob Steinberg, myself, and then Christopher Irwin, the band director, with a CC to Brent Main. It just says, good evening. This was dated Sunday, September 10th. Good evening. I just wanted to thank all of you for an amazing night Friday. When we discussed this last spring, I believe we could do something special, and all of you really took it to another level. It was outstanding planning and execution on your end. I received many compliments and just wanted to pass along a thank you to all of you. Go Eagles, Scott Garcia. So, again, a nice relationship there that, I mean, it truly was to have the Blue Star Mothers, have the Patriot Guard, have, you know, the Stark County Sheriff's deputies there, our own fire guys. Is there anybody else I'm missing?
We had a state highway patrol guy,
Yeah,
we had some military people there.
National Guard and active.
We had students.
Yeah, it truly was neat. I mean, I think when we did the walkthrough earlier in the morning, watching the kids sort of they were listening, but it wasn't as much. When we had those other individuals in those respective positions there, there was definitely even a little more attentiveness and discipline to it. So, I mean, those are the things that, you know, definitely feels good.
Plus the weather was perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing else in our communications? That'll take us to the portion of the meeting. Public speaks. Is there anybody in the audience that has anything to address the board with regarding township business? State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, gentlemen, my name is Anthony Rich. I live at 5666 Beverly Avenue. I have a couple of questions for the board this evening. First of all, in reference to the recent newspaper articles and local radio appearances, is Mr. Haas speaking for the Board of Trustees when he makes those statements? Mr. C?
No.
Mr. Luna?
No.
Mr. Haas?
No.
When those statements were made, does that mean that the Plain Township the Plain Township Board of Trustees is no longer going to honor the Plain Township and City of Canton Mutual Economic Development Agreement that was signed in 2014?
Actually, the real simple answer is there's a material weakness, so it's not valid, and that was actually brought up by Canton's mayor. So there's nothing to honor on a legal basis there because of the material weakness in it.
What court reviewed that to say that? Because this,
That was a combination of both the mayor's office and the law department, and then even when we went back looking at the property descriptions, that our law director, because our predecessor, Mr. Giabasis, who helped push this, who's no longer here, it's a material weakness. So, I mean, you're dealing with a document that is not legitimate. It's not valid, it won't be upheld.
but no court has said that so far, correct?
No, we don't need to push it because both entities have said that it doesn't have merit based upon inappropriate or not proper explanation.
No, this is a document that was signed by yourself, Mr. Haas,
It was our entire board.
and yourself, Mr. Lino, and yourself, Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, everyone that signed this document agreed that it was a valid document, and in fact, articles within this own document say that this document shall be enforced.
Mr. Williams.
I've not given a legal opinion on the enforceability of it. But I also am not going to subject my board to cross-examination by you this evening or any other evening. So if you want to ask questions, you want to give and take, that's fine, but we're not going to do roll calls, and we're not going to cross-examine my board.
I apologize for any intent that may have seemed for me to do that.
You've got about a minute left.
So I guess for the record, we're enforcing the 3-minute public speaks.
That's correct. Always has.
Did anybody from the Board of Trustees or any of your representatives approach Mr. Lamiel, the landowner, about the CETA that was proposed to the city of Canton?
Mr. Lamiel was actually at the NODOT District 4 meeting back, I think, was it April, May, originally, where it was brought up in discussion. So the context of that discussion was absolutely brought up. Getting into the merit and the details of it, no, it wouldn't have been the extensiveness because it wasn't yet a finalized contract. So does that?
Yeah, and I think his intent's pretty clear through his signing of the annexation petition.
And then one last question, thank you. This same agreement, this mutual economic development agreement that was signed between Plain Township and the city of Canton, in this agreement, it also states that the city of Canton will not annex Plain Township without Plain Township express permission. Is that correct?
That was correct, it was in there. Yeah.
Appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to address the board? Okay, that'll conclude public speaks. Takes us to concerns of trustees, and the first item on the agenda, Mr. Sabo.
Actually, I have a cooperation statement. I'm just going to let it stand. I don't want to, I'll give you each an opportunity to expound on this as well, but I want to read it because I don't want to miss anything. Since our last board meeting, there has been dialogue about whether the Plain Township Board of Trustees has a culture of not wanting to cooperate in annexation issues or assisting with the vision of the Hall of Fame Village in its importance to the city of Canton, Plain Township, and Stark County. I speak offering my own voice and opinion, and not officially for the board as a whole, but would encourage them for their thoughts and opinions on this issue as well. We are three different personalities, working fiercely and passionately for the residents, taxpayers, and visitors of Plain Township, and officially speak solely as a board when we vote for or against the resolution. The current Plain Township Board of Trustees and previous boards have had a productive history in cooperative efforts with political subdivisions and agencies, including cities, school districts, county commissioners, county engineer, ODOT, MRDD, Bureau of Veterans Affairs, park districts, and the Boy Scouts of America, to name a few. This is the #1 reason why I took this job in promoting collaborations and partnerships. I am very much aware that relationships and cooperation are both important in building trust among all collaborators. Compromising and/or agreeing to disagree should be the norm. Cooperation does not mean full harmony, total agreement, or things that may be said in the heat of the moment by people out of frustration. This can happen when government entities attempt to join park districts, high schools, health departments, building departments, and yes, even central dispatch centers. Sometimes the objections to these cooperative efforts are fueled by too many unknowns, cost factors, a loss of identity, mistrust in the leaders, and yes, unfortunately, even pride. In summary, I personally want to go on record stating that I will use my leadership experience in a proactive cooperative effort with all political subdivisions and agencies to enhance the quality of life for the residents of Plain Township and Stark County.
If I could add to that, first of all, I'd like to start that this team of trustees, I've been around these two a good while. Our purpose, and I know the fight that Trustee Hawes has and Trustee Sable, is for our residents. We will fight for our residents. Trustee Hawes has an issue with a resident, he's on it right away, takes care of it, it's what we do. So, and I have nothing written down, but I'm trying to speak and sum it up. He was on the Gary Rivers show the other day, I thought he summed it up well. He put it up together of what this CETA was all about. He left with one important thing, he left with the word communication. He's open to communicate to the city of Canton. Let's keep something in mind here. This whole thing, and I have this, our law director, he worked his butt off putting this thing together. This is that agreement right here, the CETA agreement. And let's keep something in mind that when Mr. Baker, Hall of Fame, was talking, he talked about everyone sharing a piece of the pie. With this CETA, being a cooperative economic development agreement, this is what we tried to do, this is what we want to still do with the city of Canton. We want to be able to serve both of our entities. This purpose of this was to benefit the residents of Plain Township and to the city of Canton. Both entities should benefit from the income tax, property tax. That was our goal, to share the piece of the pie and make this work. We made that effort with the city of Canton. I've got a great deal of respect for the city of Canton, the people on that board. The last thing Trustee Hall spoke about was communication. I'm open for dialogue with them and hope in the future that that section of Fulton Road, Trustee Hall said it well, we're hoping that we can still have an agreement with them that it's all for the good of the residents of Plain Township, all for the good of the residents of the city of Canton. If we're all going to share a piece of the pie, then let's work together as one. And that's what we're trying to do here, and I'm hoping that the city of Canton will see that. Right now, they don't think that it fits, but I hope in the future they see that it fits, because we can do well together as a team. It's all for the good of that piece of pie that Mr. Baker was talking about.
I think I've spoken enough on the subject, honestly. I made it clear through Gary Rivers and summarizing the exact time schedule and everything. So, I mean, there's no political posturing here by any board member up here. We are defending and protecting the rights and interests of our Plain Township residents, which is what we're voted to serve in this role for. And unfortunately, this single issue, but we thought we were on agreement, last minute, told no. It's end of discussion. So we'll evaluate situations on a case-by-case basis and determine whether it's in mutual interest or not, and proceed from there. Thank you for that statement. Thank you. Let's see, the two things I had, gentlemen, just our concerns as trustees, is the SCOG, an executive committee member for the township. We met last week on the 5th. As far as the countywide CAD dispatch update, I'm sure Chuck's a lot more familiar with this than we are, but for the sake of the public's benefit. Essentially, we talked through some of the work that's being done, getting Canton back onto the CAD system, hopefully in November. This update was provided by Major Darrell Anderson. They had talked through about the $11.9 million contract signed with Motorola. The equipment is actually shipped already. They're doing the tower work, which has started where they were originally talking about Bliss Tower downtown because of some cost and other elements. They're actually using the AEP tower. So if you go down there during the day, you'll probably see work going on there. We are going to, unfortunately, be out they're running for some grants, but I want to make it noted for the sake of Wednesday, September 27th at 7 p.m., Fire Marshal Stephen Izzy is going to be local, speaking on grants for communities that are under populations of 25,000. We were told that the look to go live date is October 1st of 2018 with a January 2019 turn down date on that old system. And to clarify, that meeting is actually going to be at the Beach City Fire Department. We as well talked just about some of the collaborative opportunities because SCOG oversees and has responsibility for the crime lab. We're exploring a partnership with Stark State because there's not a lot of school programs around that get into some of the forensic crime lab classes, so using that as a mentorship, internship platform. Some of the other stuff is just basic business updates from vacation buyback for crime lab employees due to the caseload down there, trying to still give those folks their financial earned benefit, but yet keep them in working so the caseload doesn't get too far behind. That was unanimously approved. We did table some voting for a bylaw change that has to do with the renaming of the 911 committee and centralized dispatch. And then we approved paying some expense for crime lab employees and an invoice for the city of Canton from January through the end of June. And I think those were the key takeaways I had for sake of SCOG with you guys. And then lastly, we've been working hard for the last year and a half on the whole Route 62, the realignment specifically east of Market all the way to just before the bridges by Case Park Farms. Just as a reminder, we've got a flyer. Next steps, they're actively working on the environmental assessment, and it'll be prepared to address the residential and commercial relocations related to the project. It's going to be available for public review later in 2018. The project's currently in the preliminary design phase. Right-of-way evaluation and acquisition is anticipated to begin winter 2017-2018. So a lot of the commercial businesses along there, if you get calls, because I know I've been out and seen some of them, there's markings in their yards and, hey, is this going to be where the road and the curbing starts, or, you know, what's this type of setback? So most of our businesses have been very happy still with the representation we're getting with the questions, but one of the questions that's come back up is evaluating pedestrian and bicycle access. And they're saying that's going to be evaluated as the alternative is carried forward. The alternative being this revised plan based upon the recommendations our collective team made. And then it says project information, including this newsletter, the feasibility study, aerial exhibit showing all the alternatives considered, as well as the preferred alternative, and the public comment summary and response to public comments will be available on the ODOT District 4 website. Just scroll down, select public meetings, public involvement, and from the list in the left margin. That was the only other thing I had. Is there anything else in our concerns, trustees? No, thank you. Thank you, Salem.
No, you know, the follow-up on that, you know, obviously I live in that area, so I've already had people stop and, you know, they're saying, hey, you know, we kind of like the looks of this, and, you know, it looks like there's a lot of thought that went into it, so I was a little worried it was going to be the other discussion. But, no, you know, there are a lot of routes along there in that stretch, and I actually know a couple people that are, that own those, and I think they're okay with the way the whole thing's moving forward.
Okay. Concerns of the fiscal officer, Mr. Wolf?
No concerns.
Okay, we'll take us to the approval of the minutes for August 22nd, 2017. I will so move.
I'll second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.